Are you tired of blowing out your back at the bathtub while washing your dog or subjecting your canine to a water torture bath while leashed up to a post outside? Now there's a far more effective way to wash your pet while saving your back and keeping your dog happy. It's called Booster Bath, a portable bathtub on legs. Head over to boosterbath.com, one word, and pick one up. Available in 3 sizes, this tub system features a drain, a soap cubby, and water controlling wand. This tub conveniently breaks down to be stored when not in use. Want to save 10% on your first time purchase? Head over and sign up today to make that happen. Boosterbath.com. This is the Hard Parking Podcast, brought to you by Wright Honda out of Scottsdale, Arizona, and I'm your host, Jhae Finning. Speaking of Wright Honda, it's been a crazy, awesome week. This Phoenix Yellow Civic Type R that we've been talking about for so long finally went on the auction block. Cody Walker came into town. If you haven't heard his awesome interview about Reach Out Worldwide and what they're doing to change lives around the world that are stricken from disaster, natural disasters, all sorts of things, you guys really need to go back and check out the last episode. It's hard to miss because it's called Cody Walker. But we went to Barrett Jackson auto auction on Thursday, and that thing went over the block. $150,000 to the winning bidder. Bought it for his son. Awesome story. Great guy, great kid. I mean, they were so overcome by emotion. It was just so excited to be there. So grateful. And I want to thank Jane DeMelio and Wright Honda and Joe Tenalia and Cody Walker for the opportunity to be part of that, because that was a huge thing. Coming up on today's show, I've been talking about this before. We have cryptocurrency. Finally talking about crypto. NSXTRA Chris Cutt, friend of the show, is coming back to talk about that with us, and we have a really good conversation, so that'll be coming up in a bit. Also, Dub and Les are going to talk about their Lexus, and we're going to hear from Fahad. We haven't heard from Fahad in a while in the Builder's Corner. All that and more coming up with the Q&A segment. So I had an observation in the store the other day, and I'm having a hard time. I was at Home Depot, and you guys know how I feel about that. It's not that I'm for or against it. It's just, if that's what a private business tells us to do, then that's just what you do if you want to go in there and shop. I find it so hard not to judge people who just feel like they just don't have to follow the rules when it comes to stuff like that. If you're going to go into a store and you know when you walk in, it's required. And I know I've talked about this before, and you're tired of hearing about it, and it looks like it's slowly going away, and maybe it's coming back, it's not going away. People are still getting sick. The vaccines are out there, sure. People are still dying. But it's just one of those things. It's like, look, that's all you have to do. Now, if you have a medical condition, I get it. But if you're just, I don't know. Terrible shooting, hate crime, so much is going on in the world. Everyone's fighting over guns. I don't know. I don't want to get too political. So I'm at the point with my NSX. A lot of you know I drive a turboed Acura NSX 1997. I don't really talk about it as much on the show as I used to, but I feel like I need to, because I'm at that point, and I think we all get to this point in life where you've made it so far and there's really nowhere else for you to go unless you want to spend a ton of money or you want to go a completely different direction. And I don't know. I don't want to spend a ton more money on the car. The car is perfect the way it is. You know, maybe do I take some of the decals back off? Sure, but the VF1S NSX is a brand now. It's recognized for that, and so I have to honor that. So I'm at 415 wheel, 460 if I have E85 in. The only next move, if I want any more horsepower and be safe, I'm going to have to get my entire engine build. It's going to have to be built from the bottom. Bigger sleeves, bigger this, bigger that. That package alone is going to be about $25,000. I'm essentially paying $25,000 for the opportunity to go ahead and pay more money on top of that to make the car faster. And it's life. There's always somebody smarter. There's always somebody that looks better. There's always somebody faster. There's always somebody with more horsepower. But I think you have to kind of understand where you're at in life with anything, because take away the car and you could apply everything I just said to everything in life. So you have to be satisfied with your trajectory. And if you're not satisfied with it, then it's going to take more effort to move to the next level. And if you don't have that effort, if you don't have those finances, if you don't have that drive, then you just have to be content with what you have. You have to be okay with what you have. I'm okay with what I have. Am I looking to move on? I am. Do I know what I'm going to get? We'll see. Also, I just picked up a car. I talked about it last time. I'm going to tell you more about it on the episode coming up, Hard Parking Podcast, The Other Side of the Wheel, next Monday. Coming up, Bitcoin. It's time for the social media highlight of the week, brought to you by RideSold.com, a new vehicle online auction site built by car enthusiasts for car enthusiasts with a goal to promote and sell modern-day classics. Head over to RideSold.com to buy your next car, sell your current car, or just to spectate. New auctions are coming soon to Ride Sold. NSXTRA Chris Cutt. Welcome back to the show. You'd hit me up a few weeks ago and said, hey, I'd be happy to come on and kind of tell my crypto story and kind of educate people, because honestly, there's a lot of people who just don't understand it. And to be honest, we don't believe in what we don't understand. It's just like going into space or going deep sea diving. Like we're terrified of stuff we don't know.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I think that any negativity towards cryptocurrency is simply a correlation with not understanding it. The more you delve into it, the less negativity you'll have towards it. And for me, I'm not so much bullish on any crypto. It's more I'm bearish on the dollar. And I just see this downward trend on the dollar. So I guess where I started learning about crypto, it was more I started learning about currency. And I started to question it. And like there was always weird stuff on a dollar, like weird pyramids and stuff when you look at it in the all-seeing eye. And I was like, what is this weird ass thing? I used to look at them when I was younger, and I was always just so intrigued in it. And I remember my father, this is going to date me here, but my father had bought me a Game Boy, and I was a young kid, and I couldn't believe it because those were $100. And I was like, where did you get $100? How did you do that? Like, to me as a little kid, like $100 was amazing,
$100 is amazing to me as a full-grown adult.
Yeah.
Just to put it out there.
But I was such in awe, but I got this Game Boy and I loved it. But I remember my parents also had one of those station wagons where you sit backwards in the back, kind of with like the fake wood on the side or whatever.
Sure.
And
that is what dates you.
Yeah, that's
not so much the Game Boy.
I do want to say it was a rusty hunk of crap back then too.
Okay.
But they used to throw us in the back of it as kids, and we would go to the grocery store, and we'd be running around and causing havoc. But my parents would spend, $100, and they would get 3 grocery carts full of food. And now, when I go grocery shopping, if I spend $300, I'm lucky to get 1 grocery cart of food. So something's been happening where the dollar is not buying as much as it used to. And I started looking into it, and it got me interested. And I've kind of been obsessed with currency and just kind of wondering why it does what it does. And overall, since its inception, it's actually lost 97% of its buying power. And
the American dollar?
The American dollar, the US dollar. Yeah, it's lost 97% of its buying power since its inception. And in the last 10 years, today, we have twice as much currency.
So what other factors go into that? There's got to be a ton of factors, because really what you're saying is due to inflation, right? Because you used to be able to buy a pack of bubblegum for 5 cents, and now it costs 95 cents.
Correct. Yes.
Right.
So that's the only factor. As far as I'm concerned, you could really boil it down to that. It just gets that simple.
And so much goes into that, so we don't want
to. I can get into a little bit. So the population increases, but it doesn't do what people think it does. It doesn't just go straight up. It goes up, it goes down. But overall, it's been going up. But you could actually witness this in nature. And there's a mathematical equation this guy made for it in YouTube. But they do it to mice in cages where they watch the mice populate, and then after a while, they actually stop, and they stop grooming themselves, and they stop mating. But you could witness this in nature as well. And, there's rabbits in nature, but you'd expect the population to just keep growing and growing. But then some years there's actually less rabbits than there was the previous year. So the Fed's kind of argument is, well, inflation is supposed to have a correlation with population growth, but it just doesn't, because in the last decade, we now have twice as much currency today in circulation as we did 10 years ago.
That's crazy.
And it is crazy. And we don't have twice as much of the population as we did 10 years ago. And 40% of that was printed last year alone. Now, this was accelerated by the pandemic that we had last year, by COVID, where we had to print 40% of all currency was printed last year.
But to be fair, we were already on that trajectory. We just got there quicker, right?
we were. This
Right.
just kind of put a pin in it and made it kind of jump up. And, I mean, now we've just had this $1.9 trillion stimulus. Today, there's rumors of them speaking about infrastructure and actually printing $3 trillion more for infrastructure, which quite frankly, we actually need. The roads are crap right now. There's potholes everywhere. Me and my neighbor were just outside my front yard the other day talking about how they're going to have to print more money for infrastructure. And then today the rumor comes out a week later after we've been talking about it, that they're going to print $3 trillion more. And they kind of have to. I mean, you need to make the money. It needs to come from somewhere, but nothing's backed by it anymore. And this is an unpopular opinion, mostly because people don't like it. But as soon as we started raising the minimum wage, we started printing more money to keep up with it. And there's actually charts you could see of this. I wish we could include them, but I can't on a podcast.
No PowerPoint presentations on my podcast.
Yes, unfortunately, we're not there
yet. The Economist podcast, by the way. You thought you were listening to Hard Parking. So this is the non-automotive part. When I say the non-automotive podcast.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I try to buy things that, I mean, I can't help it. I go out and I splurge sometimes. I'll buy a flat screen TV or some kind of technology that's obviously not going to be worth more when I get home and take it out of the box. But sometimes you can actually hedge against the dollar with certain cars. And the NSX, actually, which I have a couple of them, those are great hedges against inflation. They've kept right up with it. If you bought a brand new NSX for $66,000 in 1991, and it kept up with inflation. If you kept it brand new, home sealed, it would probably fetch, I don't know, what is a brand new NSX with no miles fetch on it right now?
So
a couple $100,000.
Was it a 92 that just went on Bring a Trailer, a white one? It was a because it had to have been. It wasn't 91. They didn't have white 91. So it was like a 91. It was like a 92.
Miles.
3,500 miles, and it hammered at 150, 156 ish.
Is that what it went for? Oh, that's pretty amazing.
The one before that, Mr. Cunningham's went for 121. Yeah. So you may continue. So there you go. Just got to get some car stuff in here.
Yeah, well, that is some car stuff, but I've made mistakes too where at the time I was like, screw it. I made a wise investment. I'm going to cash out some Bitcoin and, or I'm going to use Bitcoin to buy things. And I've been doing that. And some of the things I bought were cars, and I've spent, upwards of 37 Bitcoin for cars. And definitely that has gone up much more than the cars have. But here's the thing. Here's the thing. I don't believe
full circle to the groceries.
Yeah. So I don't believe that Bitcoin has actually gone up in value at all. I believe that Bitcoin is always going to be worth one Bitcoin, and its USD evaluation doesn't dictate its true value. It's just an indication of its adoption. And the dollar is going to go up and down, but for the most part, it's trajecting down for buying power. And Bitcoin's going to go, quote unquote, up and down, but it's always going to be worth one Bitcoin, and it's trajecting up because I really believe that the dollar is going to fail.
I just thought of something. So for our listeners, if you're having trouble following along, think about the whole thing. They say what's heavier, a pound of feathers or a pound of rocks? Yeah. Well, a pound is a pound. So let's say you have one rock that's a pound, and the one rock is the Bitcoin, the one Bitcoin, and the American dollar is the pound of feathers. Now, you're going to need more feathers to equal a pound because the feathers are getting smaller and smaller, as is the value of the American dollar. Boom, book it.
Well, I had also asked you a question on one of your previous podcasts that made it onto the show. And it was, how many Bitcoins am I going to need to buy
a luxury yacht? A mega yacht. Yeah. Yep, next year.
And mega yacht. I was, partially joking, but I think it's an interesting question to pose because it makes people think, and hopefully they actually investigate it a little bit. But there's only ever going to be 21 million Bitcoins.
Yep.
And Bitcoin is based on mathematical truths. It's essentially just a mathematical equation. And there is nothing more certain in this universe than math. You can always count on math. Tomorrow, 2 + 2 will still equal 4 when you wake up. Nobody can change that. Nobody can hack it. Governments can't ban it. You just can't do anything to math. Math will always stay the same. Where gold, on the other hand, they say it's finite. Yet gold was produced by the conditions of the universe. And we have no idea how much is left in this planet. We can guess. Mm-hmm. There might be an asteroid that crashes into Earth tomorrow that's solid gold. And we don't know how much the universe is making. I mean, maybe Elon Musk will be sending rockets to go mine gold asteroids, or Mars. Maybe you'll find some there. Who knows? But there's not a finite amount because it's constantly being produced, just like seashells. And those used to be used as currency once too. It's just something to think about.
So educate us a little bit about about cryptocurrency in general, because we've talked about the American dollar failing, but we still haven't really told anybody anything besides a Bitcoin. It's always going to be a Bitcoin, and the American dollar is what puts the value on it. How long have you been messing with cryptocurrency? Because obviously you've been doing it for more than most people I know, because of your YouTube video about your two NSXs costing $1.8 million in Bitcoin by today's measure.
Yeah, it's pretty close to that anyway, which is not something to be proud of, but it is something that happened. I'm not scared to admit it. But as far as when I got involved in it, well, I started getting into it not too long after it came out, really. And I was actually telling my friends, instead of going to the casino, let's invest some money in Bitcoin. And they were all like, oh, no, that's silly. It's a bubble. It's going to pop. And I actually started to question myself and say, hey, if my friends aren't willing to even put $5 in it, maybe it is a scam. Maybe it is a pyramid scheme. Maybe I shouldn't get into it. And I didn't. And then like a year later, I said, hey, guys, we should have bought it. Maybe we should buy some tonight. And nope, same thing, backlash on it. So I questioned myself and I didn't get it. And then eventually I did start getting into it. And when I made just a slight amount of profit, I was like, oh, I can get an NSX now. And so I did. And then it continued to go up. And I both regretted and didn't regret that purpose because, obviously it was a bucket list car of mine. And it brought me on a completely different journey with, social media and making a YouTube channel and bringing my dog cross country in it. So, who knows what would have happened, except I know that if I didn't do that, I'd now have enough Bitcoin to buy all of the NSXs.
Yeah, because the American dollar value towards the Bitcoin. But it's one of those things where I always tell everybody, you can't really miss what you never really had based on the what ifs, because you don't know. Like it could have just crashed and never came back, but it didn't. So now we can look at it as like, damn, I should have never did that because I'm missing out on all this money. But
yeah,
you had it to do it.
You can't really look at it like that, because I could look at it like that, like everything. It's almost like I'll never be happy in that case, because it's like, oh, I regret that I didn't buy more, or I regret that I didn't sell here and then buy more there.
But you still won. That's the thing. Even though by today's dollar towards it, it feels like you kind of screwed up. But if I could turn that kind of profit on something like that, and like I have a friend right now who I used to work with, and he has no overhead, no personal overhead. It's just him in his apartment. I don't even think he owns a car. He just lives in Brooklyn. And he makes good money. And he just, like last summer, he bought like $90,000 worth of cryptocurrency. And I check in with him every once in a while. And he's like, dude, I could buy you 4 brand new NSXs.
Tell him to do it.
Yeah. I'm like, I don't know my birthday. I go, dude, it's my birthday. You're going to buy me a car or what?
Well, so here's the thing, though. I didn't get into crypto to make more money.
Did you get curiosity?
No, I genuinely believe that the dollar is going to fail someday, and I'm not looking forward to that happening, but I want to be protected if it does. And the way I look at it is Bitcoin isn't the bubble. Fiat currency is the bubble and Bitcoin is the pin. And I kind of think that those that get into Bitcoin to make more money don't really understand Bitcoin to begin with and kind of deserve to lose both.
I got to tell you, so doing some research into it, and let me take that nugget and set it temporarily to the side here. So you just had a recent transaction. So how did your transaction go with Johnny?
Johnny.
You drove down to see Johnny?
Oh, yeah. I drove down to see Johnny. Yeah, that was great. It was nice to meet him. Actually, we spoke a lot about this topic. We see eye to eye on a lot of things. And he's a very interesting character. I picked up a couple NSX doors from him. And something else that I haven't disclosed yet. I might have actually talked about it on your channel, what it is. And maybe we should do an Easter egg hunt about that.
Maybe. But so I've known him for longer than I've known you. Mm-hmm. And as long as I've known him, it's like he's never seemed to have had like a normal job. I'm pretty sure he's been living off of cryptocurrency for years.
Yeah, it certainly seems that way. And he's been all over the world.
Yeah. So that's for my listeners. Think about that, because, and now going back to my little nugget, and I literally have my hands positioned as if I'm holding on to this like big ball of yarn, although I'm holding on to nothing. But that's just so I can't forget what I was just talking about. So I'm going back into this nugget, looking into a little research. I think one thing people don't understand is that there's hundreds of cryptocurrencies out there, and they're not all trending the same direction, but everyone's trying to get a hold of the market because it's all so decentralized, right? So going back to what you were saying earlier about the American dollar, like people listening to this, don't think that Chris is saying that he doesn't like America. He's not American. But look at the trends around the world. Every piece of currency is controlled by its local government, whereas this cryptocurrency is decentralized. So it's truly controlled by the people, right? So you own your cryptocurrency no matter where you're at. Now, if you lose your shit, like the guy who got on the news, you're kind of fucked.
Yeah, just like if you lost a bundle of cash.
Just like if you left if you left your briefcase of cash somewhere, no one's going to return it to you.
Yeah. And so it's definitely, it puts the responsibility on you, which has its downfalls as well, because a lot of people aren't responsible. So therefore, I kind of think that banks will always sort of be around in that sense. And what I kind of see happening is there will be people that will choose to be responsible for their own currency and be their own banks. But then there will be banks that will hold your cryptocurrency for you and basically charge you a fee for doing so. And they'll give you some kind of, digital card to use. Which I've heard that could be kind of a danger too, if something were to happen to them. But, it's like take control of your life or trust others to control your life for you. Yeah. Because if you go ahead. So there's other things about Bitcoin that people don't understand. There's this psychological barrier where people don't bother buying it because they don't like that they can't own an entire coin. And it attracts them to altcoins, or what I call shit coins, that are basically anything that's not Bitcoin. And there's thousands of altcoins, and people are attracted to those because some of them are fractions of a penny. But what they don't seem to grasp is this concept. Because Bitcoin is backed or based by mathematical truths, and that there's only going to be 21 million of them, that means there's not enough in existence for every millionaire to even have half of one. And people don't have to buy a whole Bitcoin. They could buy fractions of one. It's divisible by 100 millionth. So it goes to 8 decimal places. And the smallest one is called a Satoshi, named after the supposed founder of it, and or Sat for short.
He's like a ghost.
Yeah. I mean, I have my own theories on who that is and all this stuff, but it doesn't really matter because it doesn't affect the mathematical equation. So the founder could be, any race, any sex, anything. It could be aliens. The math still works.
I think it is aliens. But going back to what you said, though, I mean, I'll admit that's one of my things. I remember walking with my wife through Little Italy outside of Chicago, and a couple things with cryptocurrency. Number one, and you haven't been this guy, not that I've noticed. People who have invested in it love to tell you about it every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And so it becomes this huge turnoff. And then another thing, because it's like, oh, look how much money I made today. But I remember walking with her, and at that point, crypto or Bitcoin, had peaked to like its highest ever, which was like 12,000 per coin. And then it dropped to like 3,000. And I was in that camp where I was like, that's what you people get, which is kind of foolish. But then another thing is I thought that, man, if I just had $3,000 laying around, I would totally buy one, because I didn't know. I would imagine, like many people, that you, just like you just said, you can buy a smallest fraction of it. I thought you just had to have enough money to buy an entire coin. Yeah.
No, you only have to buy a fraction of it. And the thing is, I started off getting it not by buying it. I started off actually trading goods and services for it, or I accept it for rent from my tenants. Mm-hmm. I give them the option, and I actually give them a discount if they want to pay in Bitcoin. And I leave it up to them. So, and I believe that actually trading Bitcoin and using dollars to get it is a silly notion, because the dollar is antiquated, and Bitcoin is meant to revolutionize and replace the dollar. And you wouldn't price out cars based in horses, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
But so it's kind of a silly notion. I mean, I think it'll become apparent pretty soon, actually, sooner than we may like it to. And I'm not looking forward to that day happening, because I think it's going to be kind of bad for the world when the U.S. dollar collapses. But
if that's your way to get in, right? Yeah. If that's your way to get in, that's how you get in. Because we're still at a point where if you can walk into a grocery store, there's probably less than 3% of people in that grocery store that are literally trading in cryptocurrency.
Oh yeah, I'm sure they say only like 20% of the world even really knows about it. I don't know how accurate that is, But then you had mentioned the other coins as well, and they all have different use cases and stuff. And a lot of them say, "Oh, Bitcoin's now old technology, and it's antiquated itself, and we have newer, better, faster coins." But what they don't seem to understand about this is that Bitcoin is future-proof because of its ability to evolve and adapt to people's demands and needs. So, for example, if you kind of think of so Bitcoin you can have second layers added to it, or it can fork. So if you think of what the iPhone is to landline telephones, that's kind of what second layers are to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin is able to adapt and implement any features. So if an altcoin, essentially altcoins are just experiments for Bitcoin in this scenario, if they become popular or in demand and they start to threaten Bitcoin in any way, the development teams for Bitcoin, whatever features that alternative coin has, will simply be implemented into Bitcoin's second layer.
So Bitcoin is basically like Facebook and Instagram.
It is in a way.
Because they kind of they absorb all other technologies that come out, or they mimic.
So MySpace was not willing to evolve and adapt. And if they had just made their user interface like Facebook's, then we'd be talking on Facebook today. And I mean, on MySpace today and not Facebook.
Which is interesting you say that, because when Facebook first came out, I signed up and I was like, this is boring. You can't customize anything. This shit is never going to last.
Yeah.
And a lot of people say that about Bitcoin. Yeah. And I got to tell you, so another thing that a lot of people, though, you can say it's a misconception. You can say it's partial truths, because it's a currency that's typically not trackable. So they say, well, a lot of times it's used on the black market, and it could be. But when you hear black market, you automatically associate that with illegal activities. And so people don't want to have anything to do with it, or they think it's going to go away soon. And 5, 6, 7 years ago, you go to these large download sites and you have banners. And I don't remember if it was Bitcoin or some other sort of crypto. It was probably Bitcoin. And so banners are always associated with quick, a lot of times bullshit ads. And so I think in the fabric of our brains, we just can't really compute that, hey, it's not all bad. And people like yourselves and millions of other smart people, and I'm not saying people are dumb, and I've said this on my podcast millions of times, I was like, either I'm the dumbest person in the world or the smartest person in the world, because I haven't really done anything with crypto.
Yeah. Well, it's a public, the blockchain is a public ledger for Bitcoin. So every single coin's transaction is traceable, and you could watch it. Yeah. And you could see where it is. Actually, cash is the number one currency used by the black market and terrorists. It's their preferred method.
Right. But I'm saying, traditionally.
Yeah.
But it is one of those things where it's like, okay, where the FBI or whoever, they can't, these are things that are out there. Right. Yeah. So if a terrorist wants to send $100 million in Bitcoin to somebody else to fund something, you just can't do anything about it.
No, you can't. And even if they catch the terrorist, they can never get his Bitcoin unless they were to torture the private keys out of him.
Right. Which, good luck with that.
Yeah. I mean, actually, the United States government holds, because the blockchain is transparent, you can see this. The United States government actually holds a massive amount of Bitcoin. Yeah. And they seized a lot from Silk Road and other various ways. And they used to auction it off, and they actually stopped doing that. They're not doing that anymore, which is very interesting to me.
So it really comes down to control as well, then. Yeah. Just to go back to what you said a few moments ago about, trading in large duffel bags and briefcases of cash to do illegal activities.
Oh, it's certainly
the same thing. Yeah. You just can't seize the Bitcoin, which let's tell everybody it's a threat.
Yeah, you can't get on a plane with 10 grand, and I mean, try lugging around a backpack full of gold. It's heavy and inconvenient. And that's the other thing. So Bitcoin is essentially gold 2.0, because if you want to, if let's say you have a little bit of gold on you and you want to go buy a coffee, you need to get to the coffee place. They need to accept it first of all. And even if they do, you need a way to weigh it. So you're going to have some kind of scale. Hopefully they have one at the coffee place. You're going to have a way to slice off the chunk of gold that you need precisely. And then you have to agree on a price. Sir. Yeah, exactly. It's just it's not convenient. It's not practical. And you can't send it across the globe in a matter of seconds. So.
Yeah. So I did some research into this stuff, and I actually own some now. So in this last month, I've done exactly what you said is dumb. I've actually invested a little bit of cash into it. And what I've done is
I didn't say it was dumb. It's actually a great idea.
That's really the only way to get in.
Yeah.
Unless, but now if somebody wants to pay me in that, I would accept it. Whereas before because going back to Nomadic Johnny, I just call him Johnny Nomad. I bought a part from him and he's like, just pay me point something of this crypto. And I'm like, dude, I don't mess with that yet, but I'll let you know when I do. And he sent me the video to watch like 45 days ago. And I watched it with my wife and we can, cause she's a traditional banker and, she works at Wells Fargo and she's done nothing but banking. And so I understand from a banking aspect how they're kind of a little, not really sure about this, but even after watching the video, she was kind of like, okay, I kind of get it, but I'm still not sure. And I'm like, oh yeah, it's still kind of crazy. And then I fucking downloaded the Coinbase app and have been going like a madman with it. But to me, it's just kind of fun to kind of watch it and a little experiment for people out there, not to cut you off, but even, all these other little coins that you were talking about earlier, they say, watch these videos and we'll give you some of these coins. So then it's like, you're just playing with stuff you really can't do anything with, but it's fun to just kind of watch it and see where it goes. And when you go and when you look at the trends, especially of Bitcoin, even when it crashes on a grander scale, it's still up and to the right. And to your question about how much will you need to buy a mega yacht, they're predicting it's going to be worth up to 170 per Bitcoin by the end of 2022.
Well, so you said they. I don't know who they is, but I laugh whenever experts
I go online
say they.
and research this, and because I don't. So when you ask me a question like that, I have to research it before I can answer it. So these are the same sites that seem to be feeding this information on. So
here's the thing: if you were to measure all of the wealth in the world, and like I said, there's twice as much currency in circulation as there was 10 years ago. So I mentioned that Bitcoin is essentially gold 2.0,
right?
And I mean, I think the cryptocurrency market cap is around $1.5 trillion, $1.7 trillion maybe today. And $1 trillion of that is Bitcoin. So the other altcoins that it makes obsolete, that'll become apparent soon as well. And if all that floods into Bitcoin, because there's really nowhere to put your money now, people aren't putting it into gold right now. In fact, people are cashing out gold to buy Bitcoin. So, I mean, that would give Bitcoin a market cap of $1.7 trillion, which would bring the price up about 33% right now to about $90,000 a coin, something like that. Now, what other market caps does it address besides its own cryptocurrency one? Well, it addresses gold because it is essentially gold 2.0. And gold right now has a $9 trillion market cap or $10 trillion. And since Bitcoin's only at 1, well, it's only eaten about 10% of gold's market cap. And if you bring it to the point where it actually is the same as gold's market cap, which, by the way, I just read some article that Bitcoin is now the third largest currency in the world now that the Turkey currency just failed. And I believe Google searches for Bitcoin in Turkey just went up 500% after their currency dropped 15% in one day.
And just hold on. As of right now, literally right now, the market cap is $982.2 billion.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a dip today. I think it fell down towards 50 something thousand.
It's at 52,715 right now.
Yeah. Okay. So if it does eat up gold's market cap, I think that brings it to around $400,000 per coin. But now it has all the other markets that it addresses. It addresses currency as a whole, which there's around $100 trillion worth of currency in the world if you were to value it all in US dollars. And then once you do that, I mean, now we're talking millions of dollars for a Bitcoin. And then there's other assets as well, like real estate. And if you start pricing every good and asset in US dollars, then you got to print more money to get to it. But when you start when you start giving it an evaluation in Bitcoin, if you give goods and services valuations in Bitcoin, well, because Bitcoin is a deflationary asset, what happens is over time, the cost of those goods start to actually decrease slowly and gradually over time. Where some altcoins are like, oh, we're finite because we burn our supply. So there's actually less of the asset next year. So this year there's 1 million coins. Next year it'll be 500,000, and that's great. But that's not great because that's called hyperdeflation. And hyperdeflation doesn't work because if you're not going to spend any money, if it's going to be worth more tomorrow, like you're not going to buy a car tomorrow if you could buy it the next day for half as much.
Sure.
Does that make sense? Yeah.
Unless you're just really stupid or really desperate.
Yeah, so that's a lot of the reason why those specific coins aren't going to work, and that's because hyperdeflation doesn't work as a currency. It's not a good model.
With that being said, I have to let you go for now. I have to jump on another call. You want to come back and do the Q&A segment with me?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
All right, I'm gonna call you in a little bit, and we'll do the Q&A segment.
Okay, sounds good.
As I always want to thank NSXTRA Chris Cutt. He's going to be back with us in a little bit. We touched on it a little bit. He has a YouTube video out, and he's been playing with crypto for a while, specifically Bitcoin for a while. And so he has the YouTube video where he's basically spent $1.8 million worth of Bitcoin on old Hondas. And he didn't really come out and say it in our interview, but if you watch the video, or I'll just tell you, basically he had bought a bunch of Bitcoin and he cashed a lot of it in and bought an NSX. I mean, that's cool. And one thing that I told him is like, look, you can't beat yourself up over that. You can't ever be upset of what you didn't have or what you almost had, because life doesn't work that way, because it could have gone the other way. So he sells those Bitcoin and he has enough money to buy his NSX. But let's say he never sold those Bitcoin. Now we know what we know today, hindsight 2020, but it could have crashed like all the other little crypto, little blockchains. Because there's hundreds out there. There's probably thousands of them out there. Some other one could have taken off. Then it wouldn't be worth anything. And then he wouldn't even have his NSXs. And I think he understands that. And there's a bigger lesson in that. You know, you can't dwell on what you can't control. You can't dwell on what you should have, could have, would have done. All you can do is, like, you can't predict the future. I've had money before in the past, and I've done stupid shit with it. Now, hell, I should have bought Bitcoin back when I was talking shit about it. But why would I? Because I was talking shit about it. Anyway, coming up, the Builder's Corner returns. Dub and Les, welcome back to the show. Tell us all about your awesome new car.
Yes, that's my new baby. So I just picked up, not even a month ago, maybe a month, a 2016 Lexus RX 350 Sport. I actually had a 2009 Lexus IS 250, and I have a 16-year-old who was using my car all the time. She has 2 jobs, school, volleyball, and so I never had a car. And we were looking at things, and with us, you know, helping people repair credit, things like that, we worked on our credit. So we decided to, instead of buying her like a cheaper car, we let her take over my car, and I upgraded to the SUV, and I love it.
You said, how old is she? 16?
Yes.
Got a 16-year-old rolling an IS 250. Man, must be nice.
Yeah.
Talk about spoiled, right?
Super spoiled.
So why this Lexus?
Well, I actually so my dream car is the Black Panther Lexus. I'm obsessed with that car, but that's a little out of my price range right now. And driving the 250, I loved that car. I actually, back in 2016, I had a 07 IS 250, and I was in a really bad car accident where a young lady basically ran a stop sign, and I T-boned her at 55 miles an hour, totaling my car. Thankfully, both my son and I were able to walk away from that accident, and I do have some internal injuries that you can't see, but the injuries could have been a lot worse. I had a lot of people see that accident and tell me, you should not have walked away from that. And that's honestly what really sold me on Lexus, was the way it protected myself and my son at the time of that accident. And so I had that one, upgraded to the 09 after my accident, loved whipping around in that little thing. But with 4 kids and 2 foster kids, I can't really take the kids anywhere in that. You know, it's way too small of a vehicle. So I decided to get the bigger one and go to the SUV. And I actually chose this one, the sport model and everything, because it still whips around like my little car, right? To be honest. So,
yeah, those IS 250s are nice. I've always liked them. So, Dub, what say you on this? Or is it kind of what Les wants, what Les gets?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, and she's kind of spoiled. So, you know, if she wants something, she's pretty much going to get it, or she's going to be determined to figure out a way to make it fit her budget to buy it. So I'm just kind of figured out to just go with the flow when it comes to that. So it was a good buy. We bought used because we didn't want to have that huge drop when you buy brand new and drive off the lot. So we were like, all right, let's buy used. We're probably going to upgrade in a few years anyway. So buy something used that's economical and still fits in the budget, but Miss Leslie still needs to have the Lexus emblem.
Gotta have that Toyota motor runs like no other.
Man, they're amazing. We love them. So yeah, we went ahead and made that purchase. It was a good buy, and we're really happy with what we got.
And I do want to mention, as far as our 16-year-old having the 250, I did make her take over payments on that. There's a year left. And so
she's got like 12 payments.
Yep. She's paying for it to learn responsibility and everything. So.
Oh, yeah, that's good. When you said take over, I hopefully the listeners were paying attention. I assume that's what that meant, but not quite an LC 500, but not everybody can have one of those, but it'll do.
Yeah, that's for me next.
Oh, is that the one you just showed me?
That's the Black Panther car.
That's the
Black Panther. Because you just showed me a IS. I've never even knew there was a IS 500.
Yeah, that's coming out. Did you see that, Jhae?
No, I'm looking. Let me look that thing up because I know the ISF was a really cool one.
Yep. It's similar to that one, except they put a bigger motor in it. Go ahead, take a look at it. It's pretty freaking dope.
Yeah, Dub decided to send me a picture of it, just the other day. And I'm like, are you serious? I just upgraded and now you want to show me this bad boy?
Yeah,
like getting a new iPhone.
Budget.
Right, pretty much.
Well, wait, it gets better. Yeah, this 472 horsepower beast, 2022 Lexus IS 500 F Sport.
Yes.
Well, let me try that again. Introducing the 472 horsepower 2022 Lexus IS 500 F Sport.
Whoop.
Beautiful car.
Thank you. Oh, the car. Yeah, I thought you were giving me, kind of voiceover. Yeah, man, that's nice. I like that better than the LC5 500 because it doesn't look just as overly in your face aggressive.
That's what I liked about it too. So
it looks sleek, new money, family,
classy.
not corner office car, but just really classy roll up. Like you guys should do like a Lexus commercial. I could see that.
I'll put that one on the agenda.
Dub rolls
Make
up
sure we get a couple
Les
of those.
gets out of the passenger seat and like runs over around and opens the door for Dub.
That'd be awesome.
All right, guys. I want to thank you for carving out this time.
Awesome.
Truly appreciate you, Jhae, and everything you do, man.
Yes, thank you for having us on again.
Anytime. Talk to you later.
All right, guys.
Peace.
It's time for the Builder's Corner segment brought to you by 4Wheel Online. For over a decade, 4Wheel Online has been bringing the best truck accessories and truck parts to enhance the appearance and performance of all trucks and SUVs. They're dedicated to providing an extensive range of upgrades that will match any make or model on the road. Their truck products cover everything you need to give your truck a custom look and added functionality. Need a wheel and tire package? Head over and use the configuration tool. They carry all of the major brands of wheels and tires, so get it outfitted today. Visit them at 4Wheel Online. That's 4Wheel singular, number 4 online, or call them at 813-769-2451. Today's Builder's Corner segment guest is returning to the show, Fahad, which is MF_BAIG. Welcome back to the show, man. Been a long time.
Thanks, Jhae.
What are we going to learn about today, or just get an update on your build? And for the new listeners, can you just let us know what you're driving and what you got going on?
Yeah, sure. My car's still kind of the same project that I've had, for the last several years. It's a 2003 Infiniti G35 Cube. I've owned the car for about 12 years now, and it's gone through, quite a bit of updates from, engine to turbochargers, that sort of thing. Kind of like the latest iteration of it. It's on a recently built motor. It's currently has a 6266 turbo. And so the new project is upgrading that from that turbo to a significantly larger turbo, a Precision Gen 2 6870.
So what kind of turbo difference are we talking with those numbers? I have a turbo car. I don't know what 67. I don't know what any of that shit means. So what kind of difference of power are we talking here?
So the difference of power should be pretty substantial. The current turbo I have, it's probably rated for about 750 horsepower all in.
Jesus.
I'm making about 650 just due to the engine size and like the amount of exhaust back pressure I'm seeing. It's pretty much at its limit at 650 to the tire. So this new turbo, it's the 6870. It's extremely popular with like the Supra crowd. This is kind of their go-to street turbo for any of like the 1,000 horsepower builds.
For moving those big ass MK4 boats.
Exactly. Yeah. So that's probably like the smallest like 1,000 horsepower turbo available for like the 6-cylinder crowd. So I'm shooting for a little bit more conservative than that. Ideally, I'd like to get somewhere between 750 and 800 horsepower to the tire with this upgrade.
So have you driven your car in the last year and a half?
So it's been running up until about, maybe about 2.5 months ago when I took it down to do the turbo upgrade.
Okay.
But in the last year it's been together. I probably put about, maybe 3,000 or 4,000 miles in the last year.
Like I have no idea how many miles I put on my cars anymore after last year. So I was just kind of curious. And then yours isn't something that, I mean, are you driving in the dog days of summer? We had record heat last year. And then you're out here in Arizona, just for those people listening.
Yeah, if I take the car out in the summer, it's usually just kind of a fun little spirited drive. And I'm probably taking out 11 p.m. midnight, just so I can kind of enjoy it.
Which is still 110 degrees outside.
Exactly. Yeah, but at least, the sun's not beating down on you.
Yeah. What else you got going on with the car? So you're upgrading the turbo.
Yeah, so that's kind of the main focus. And then there's a bunch of small upgrades kind of going on, like to support the new turbo upgrade, like a new larger downpipe going from a 3-inch downpipe to 3.5-inch, kind of upgrading the exhaust the same size as well.
How's the clutch?
Clutch, well, so far I'm still on my competition 6-puck clutch. Mm-hmm. I imagine that's probably going to be on its way out soon. So I'm just kind of waiting for it to kind of slip and then, probably go to a twin or triple plate disc clutch.
I guess that's what they say, though, right? It's like you don't rush to upgrade your clutch until it starts failing on you. And I know it sounds like a dangerous thing, but you can kind of tell when the clutch starts going on you, and then that's when you should start to address it, right? So don't just rush out there and buy a new clutch just because you're upgrading your power.
Yeah, exactly. And I think the way the power is going to hit with this larger turbo is going to be a little bit different. So it might not be so urgent because I think the torque will come in a little bit more gradual than it was with that smaller turbo I had. Mm-hmm. So it might be a wash, but we'll kind of see. I'll just one of those things I'll just monitor and upgrade as needed.
Yeah, I try not to dump mine. I was more worried about it before I got it upgraded and did a few other things. But even now, it's just like I'm so paranoid to fracture my $16,000 motor.
Yeah.
So what is your goal here? Like, so you redo the build and you were putting down what, 600 and something now to the wheel, and how much does that thing weigh? Because every time I see it, it's missing the entire front end, so it's got to be at least a couple hundred pounds.
It's about 3,400 pounds, I think, right now.
Okay.
Probably actually since the last time you saw it, the car's actually all back together, at least until I took it apart for the turbo. It's all painted. It's got a front bumper, all that stuff. So it's looking like a car again.
Well, cool. And then what is your goal?
I'd like to turn it up to about, 750, 800 to the tire. Yeah, probably just kind of keep it there and then, plan out some more upgrades later on this year. But, realistically for this engine, the way it's built, probably 850 is probably the cap for me.
And that's just for your own enjoyment and maybe some far west side cruising, because we have those long highways out there.
Yeah, pretty much. I haven't really taken the car out on this power level to like the drag strip or really, done any half-mile stuff. Probably down the road, but it's mostly just for me to kind of enjoy it.
So you're updating your Instagram regularly with this. So if people wanted to follow along and maybe ask you any questions about your build, they would just follow you at MF_BAIG. Yeah,
pretty much. I'm fairly active. Anytime I have something like decent kind of report back, I'll usually share that in my story or my post on the car.
Cool, man. Thanks for joining the show and giving us an update.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
It's time for the Q&A segment where I answer questions that were asked on social media. I ask you to ask me questions, whether it's car questions or non-car questions, and I pick and choose which ones I want to answer. And sometimes I bring on a guest. So Chris from earlier, NSXTRA, is back to help me out on the Q&A. So let's do this.
All right, let's go. Let's do it.
Some pretty good ones this time. I think I wrote almost all of them down. One guy hit me up and asked me about, he was trying to buy an NSX, which isn't really what that give me your questions is for. But we'll start with Wes Tankersley, friend of the show. Favorite barbecue joint when growing up in Texas. So you didn't grow up in Texas. I grew up in Texas, but maybe you have a favorite barbecue joint you can throw out there from Christmas past.
Not in Texas, but out here we have a place called Pig Out that's pretty good.
Pig Out?
Yeah, to me, like they sell burnt ends, and not a lot of places around here do that. So that's really why I like them.
It's a good reason. I can say that growing up in Texas, my family moved. So when I was adopted in Georgia, and then we moved to Texas, and my parents are from Minnesota, and we really didn't have much barbecue growing up. It's one of those things, right? You grow up, you do whatever your parents do. You eat whatever your parents make, and you whatever. So I don't remember us really having many barbecue things. I didn't really enjoy barbecue until I became an adult. So,
I actually just made a bunch of brisket the other day, but it was too cold here to use the smoker outside, so I put it in the slow cooker, which is kind of cheating.
well, it's funny you say that about it being too cold because my wife wants me to smoke meat all the time. And I'm like, look, man, it's not smoking meat weather because unless you have one of those $5,000 smokers, it's just the ambient air. Like it just affects it. It just affects it too much.
Well, it's not even that. I just have everything put away for the winter and under covers, and I feel like taking it out.
You're in a different kind of cold area. Yeah.
Snow. There's still actually, I think as of like yesterday, we don't have any more snow on the ground, but we did. We had a lot this winter.
Catherine Cox asked, COVID vaccine, yes or no? And would you get other travel vaccines? So have you gotten your COVID vaccine, or what are you guys doing in your state? Or do you plan on getting it if it's available to you?
If people want to get it, I'm all for it. Go for it. I personally am not getting it.
Did we have this conversation before?
No, I don't think so. I just, geez, this whole question is just setting me up to sound like a conspiracy theorist. I like vaccines that have had trials from the FDA for longer periods of time than this one. So that's all.
That's fair. I mean, a lot of people feel that way, and now there's 3 or 4 of them. I don't have it. If I was still traveling for work, they kind of give it to us complimentary because in healthcare. But since I don't travel, I haven't really signed up to get it here. I think I could. I just haven't. And so I'm not really anti-vaccine. It's kind of like getting the flu shot every year. I only get it because I'm forced to get it for work. And it's not that I'm an anti-vaxxer. If I'm forced to get it, I'll get it. So that's kind of the same thing with, would you get other travel vaccines? Well, yeah. If they say if you're flying into Mexico, you can't go unless you have this vaccine, then I'm going to ask my doctor to, or just get one at CVS, and then I'm going.
I guess all I'm saying is I'm definitely not first in line for them.
Right. Ugly Bastard. And there's some food ones on here. Is it acceptable to make grilled cheese with mayo instead of butter?
Absolutely. In fact, it comes out better, I think.
See, so I've never had it that way. And if you haven't had it that way, your first immediate thought was, ew. But then I started thinking about, okay, what's mayo made of? What are some of the qualities of mayo? Well, when I grew up, we didn't ever use real butter. We used margarine, which is like almost like mayo, but not really. So I can see how that can kind of form like a nice, crisp, maybe even a little, I can imagine it being a little tart because of the mayo. Does it kind of taste like that?
No, it doesn't even taste like mayo when you're done with it. I used to only eat them with butter too, but then somebody made it for me with mayo, and I was like, oh, this is way better. It just made it more like golden, and I don't know. It was
golden
delicious.
And flaky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can get that. I understand that. So Sebastian 1581. First off, this sounds like a bourbon. Sebastian 1581.
Yeah, it does sound like a bourbon.
Aged for 8 years. I don't remember if you're a comic book or movie guy or not, but the question is, thoughts on the new Justice League if you've seen it. I saw it the other day.
I'm not the right person to ask for that. The only kind of superhero movies I like are, I like the old Batman when the Joker was played by
Michael Keaton.
By Jack Nicholson, Michael Keaton. Yeah.
I saw it. Don't want to spend a lot of time on it. I thought it was definitely better than what we saw in the movies originally. It was still a little long, a little dramatic. They could have cut 30 minutes out and it would have been just as good. And that's really all I'm going to spend on that. It was okay. I didn't hate the first one, and I sure as hell didn't hate this one. Being in 4:3 was a little weird when you have a giant TV on the wall, but you get past that pretty soon. Will LS430 asks, how big up? This is another good question. Non-food. And you know what? This question is why I was like, let me ask Chris if he wants to come on. For some reason, I just feel like you would have an opinion here.
Okay.
How big of a hole in your sock does it need to be thrown away?
Any holes on the bottom of the sock need to be thrown away.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it's something about when you put your sock on and you start walking on the floor and you feel like that weird little tackiness.
Yeah.
That little patch of skin bleeding through and touching like the tile or the wood floor. It's like, oh, hell no.
Yeah.
Or the inside of the shoe. I mean, how much is a socks? $10 for like 6 or 7 pair at Walmart.
Yep.
Like, you don't have to go and buy the Adidas socks. Granted, it's going to take longer to get a hole in it, but yeah, I mean, it's like underwear. Like I feel like we hold on to underwear way too long. Like socks and underwear, it's okay to recycle them. Well, get rid of them.
Yeah. Well, when I did commercial fishing, I would go through a lot of brand new socks. It's all I'd wear when I went out fishing. I wouldn't wear the same pair twice.
Well, there you go. Oh, this is your question. And I have thoughts. Remember what you asked?
I don't. I know it was today. That's how bad my memory is.
Is daylight savings time stupid?
Oh, yes, it is. I hate it.
I'm sure. Okay, so you have to break it down, right? Daylight savings time versus time zones, and they're related, but not really. I think it is kind of stupid. I understand time zones.
Yeah.
But spring forward, fall back, we don't do it either here. Like 2 weeks ago, I was on Mountain Time, and now I'm on Pacific Time. Yeah, that's Arizona.
That's strange. I didn't know that.
There's a line in Indiana that does that too. Well, sometimes they're on the same time, and sometimes they're not. I don't remember. Somewhere over there's a line.
Yeah, that's very strange to me.
I called, so I'm picking up that vehicle this weekend, and I called a town 30 miles west, 30 miles east of where I need to be. And it's a different time than where I need to be. And that's just weird when you get so close to it.
Yeah. The night that I was driving down to North Carolina last week to pick up NSX parts, I told everybody I'd be there at 7 a.m. And it was the night that the clocks went forward. So I ended up, I told everybody that I was actually planning on being there at 6 a.m, but I was driving fast and I did make it there at 6 a.m, but it was actually 7. So it was just weird. But I ended up being there on time, but only because I was speeding. I had totally forgot that the clocks were changing that night.
Yeah. And with the drive that I'm doing this weekend, I'm going east and driving back west. So it's almost like I have the advantage, I think.
Yeah. Well, I just wanted to say an odd thing is when you're flying across the country, and if you're flying west, you'll have the longest sunsets ever on the flight. And if you're flying east, it'll be like 10 minutes long.
That's true. When I flew to China in 2006, we took off from Minneapolis and we flew west. And it was like we were chasing the sun. It was like a 15-hour flight before we connected somewhere. And I swear it took forever for the sun to go down. It went down for 5 minutes before it was back up.
Yeah, it's really neat.
So Mark Stoneman asked, what's the worst car fad ever? And a picture he attached was the little eyelids or the eyelashes, the eyelashes on the Volkswagen Bug. What's the worst car fad ever?
There's so many bad ones.
There's a lot of bad ones. But they were good at the time, maybe.
I've decided that I'm bringing Underglow back. I'm going to put it on the NSX and the trailer.
No, you're not bringing it back. It's been back, bro.
Yeah, I hope
people are doing it, but now it's the LED instead of the pure neon.
Yeah,
it's been back for a few years.
My friend's car 2 nights ago.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's so difficult, right? Because a fad is a fad, and that's what everyone's into at the time. Like I think back to
I got it. I know what it is.
The bra?
No, it's the Carolina squat on trucks, where the back of the trucks are lowered down, like you can't even see over the hood.
Oh, that's dumb.
Yeah, have you seen that?
Fortunately, no.
Look up Carolina squat when you get a chance.
You know what? You know what another bad one is? It's the big smokestacks on the pickup trucks.
Look up Carolina squat right now so you can know what I'm talking about.
I mean, I'm pretty. I can imagine it. Carolina squat truck comes right up, and then Carolina square. Yeah, that's dumb. Squat. Yeah, that's dumb. Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, that's dumb. That looks like a dog dragging his ass across the floor.
Exactly. And they'll do it to the point where like their back bumper is dragging and they can't see over the hood.
Did they kind of look out the window? Like I can just see like an arm hanging out the window and like the head.
Yeah.
I'm going to agree. I don't know anything about that, but I'm going to agree with you. That's pretty fucking dumb. And there's a lot of dumb ones out there. And you have to kind of respect people for it, but that's just dumb. There's nothing to respect about that.
Yeah, nothing.
Joe Nieves, Mr. Joe, I'm sorry if I slaughtered your last name. And this is more specific to me, but I swapped it around a little bit, knowing you were going to come on or come back on. And this is really with my VF1S NSX build, because he knows that I don't, like, once you've done it, you have to challenge yourself to do something else instead of redo it. And so the question is really, what would be your dream build? Like, what canvas would be used? Like, if you could just build some sort of badass something, what would you start with, and what do you think it would be?
I was actually sort of thinking about this tonight. Like, so one of my dream cars is a Pagani, but you can't really do much to them. Like,
Right.
you could put bags on it and wheels on it and piss everybody off or something. But I was thinking I'd actually like to make like a lowrider.
A lowrider Pagani?
No.
Oh.
No, I'm just saying. I was sort of just changing the platform there on you. But I would really like to make a lowrider.
Like a
Like with an
traditional?
Like with an old Lincoln Continental or something.
I'm looking at this Impala that a fellow podcaster with Thomas Freemy podcast made. And he didn't make, but he sent it to me because he got out of jail and did all that kind of stuff. But he I don't know, he wanted me to have it. But it's kind of cool. I think my original phase 2 that I was going to try to go to SEMA with was basically the same thing, but I was going to replace every panel in the car and put in, like, I did all this research. I was going to have like these hidden louvers open up and these like little missile areas. And I was going to actually put rivets in the car, but buy like extra panels, like downforce panels and shit like that, and door panels, and just make it look, because the fighter jet has a version called a Super Strike, and it's got all these giant missile launchers and everything on it. I was going to do that, and it would have probably cost me $35,000-$40,000, and it would have been really cool, but it would have been even more polarizing than cutting your NSX in half.
Yeah.
And having people ask you what the fuck.
Yeah. Speaking about that, I keep changing the design like mid-project.
What's the latest on it now?
Well, instead of cutting the doors at an angle, I think I'm actually going to cut them straight up and then go back at an angle. It'll give me a little more storage room inside.
You're going to have to show me a picture. One of your awesome little mock-ups.
Yeah, I suck at Photoshop, so
hey,
I was trying.
If you can get the point across, it's good.
Yeah.
And the last question comes from John Chu, who actually I put his email in a frame because he's the first person that ever emailed the show. But how are EV vehicles ever going to fulfill the need for incredible exhaust note? He actually said manly, but I got rid of manly because I don't want cancel culture to get me. But John Watts kind of talked about that. We talked about that a little bit.
Well, they're using speakers now in cars. They have been for a while to try to make the sound inside the car.
Yeah, they're trying to pump stuff in there from the motor, and in some cases a little artificial. So it's like, so my car, it just sounds like crazy from the outside.
Yeah.
From the inside, it sounds pretty good. And then from like the new Civic or the Civic Type R, I guess, and the new NSX sounds really good on the inside. Doesn't really sound like much on the outside.
Does the new NSX have speakers in it?
It's got some sort of piping in there.
Okay.
I don't know if they're actually speakers. It's got some sort of piping in it that helps pump the sound in from the motor. So it's kind of bounces around inside. So it probably sounds more aggressive to the driver. Like you're more into it, I guess.
I've never driven an EV car, and I really want to. And part of the appeal of like driving a Tesla to me is that it is silent. I want to experience that. It must be so weird.
I haven't either. Like, it doesn't sound like a remote control car. Like the true EVs, like at Pikes Peak, they have to put alarms on them so you can hear them.
Yeah.
And it's the weirdest thing when you're there and they're coming out of the tent and they just have a car alarm or just this constant like all the way up the mountain.
Yeah, that's odd.
Because they're silent. You can't hear shit. Especially that fucking, was it Volkswagen they had? I have to go back and dig through my videos, but that thing shot up the mountain in like 5 minutes or something. But it was crazy.
I have an idea for a YouTube video I'm going to do, but specifically it needs to be a 2012 Tesla. So I'm trying to find one.
Is this breaking news on the podcast?
What's that?
Is this breaking news on the podcast?
It could be. It's just going to be a silly video, but it needs to be a 2012 Tesla because they get free supercharging for life.
Huh. Why is that?
I don't know. It was some kind of promotion Tesla did, but if you buy a 2012 Tesla, you get free supercharging.
Huh.
So yeah, if you find any used Tesla right now that's 2012, it gets free supercharging for life.
Thought you were going to say buy a 2012 and ship it your way so you can do whatever it is you need to do with it.
I just need something. I just need it for a day.
You could probably put an APB out on that, and someone could probably fork it over.
Well, I called my friend at CarMax the other day and asked if he got them, but he said that they weren't allowed to sell Teslas there, but they're having an agreement and they're going to start getting them.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that is a Q&A segment.
It was a good one.
Yes, sir. Thank you for coming through. I want to thank NSXTRA once again for coming by twice in this show. So I just registered for this podcast in India, and it is Ghana and Savna or something like that. Anyway, there's these two giant podcast platforms in India, 100 million people. So I was accepted over there. So hopefully I'll start seeing some numbers from India. So if you're listening to this from India, welcome to the show. If you're listening to this from anywhere else, this is your first time to the show, welcome. I want to thank you for this episode. Make sure you come back next week. Before I go any further, again, special thanks to Ray Honda, Higher Quality Detail Booster Bath, 4-Wheel Online, Tongue Treats, Ride Sold, and Patreon business supporter, Kuya Automotive. If you want to get in contact with the show, hardparkingpodcast@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram at NA2NSX, or, so if you like the cars, NA2NSX. If you like travel and miscellaneous crap, then you can hit me up at Jhae Travels, JHAE_travels. Both of those are on Instagram. Please join the Hard Parking Violations Facebook group. I'll let you in. Just have to ask. It should be a public group. I made it a private group on accident. It won't let me switch it to a public group because it has people in it. And so it's like violating their privacy or some stupid shit. If you're in a position to help the show grow, then join the Patreon for as little as $3 a month and get access to bonus audio as well as show swag. Or you can just tell a friend and help the podcast grow, because I can't do this without your word of mouth advertising. That's right. I can't grow unless you tell the world how good the show is. Let's do this. Let's grow this thing together. We'll do it again next week. As a lot of you guys know, my daily driver is a 2007 Infiniti FX35 Sport. It's about time I put some money into it. Can't just drive the NSX around all the time looking nice. Want to get some wheels? For over a decade, 4-Wheel Online has been bringing the best truck accessories and truck parts to enhance the appearance and performance of all trucks and SUVs. They're dedicated to providing an extensive range of upgrades that will match any maker model on the road. Their truck products cover everything you need for a custom look and added functionality. I was talking about a wheel and tire package. Head over and use their configuration tool. They carry all the major brands of wheels and tires, so go get outfitted today. Visit them at 4Wheel Online. That's 4Wheel, singular, online. Are you tired of your dog losing its cool in a thunderstorm or fireworks? You might want to look at Tongue Treats. TongueTreats.com. High anxiety relief, pain relief, inflammation relief. It's a direct connection between the tongue and the brain. Doesn't waste time going down to the stomach, where it gets broken down, enters the bloodstream, then to the brain eventually. By then, little Izzy, my dog, has been hiding under the house for like 20 minutes. The Tongue Treat CBD strips provide rapid results for your pet with the right amount of CBD, which is not psychoactive. It's important to test and verify your pet is getting the proper dosage. A single strip should be enough. Have doubts? There's certified analysis from a lab available on the website. Think about it: efficacy and economy. Tongue Treats.